Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good afternoon now to those of us on the East Coast. Not us, right? Just Brad. We are so excited to have all of you here. It is Wednesday, November the 13th at 11 a.m. Central Time. We're super excited to be talking about a transition from PODS 4 to PODS 7, which is the hottest topic of the year this year. So super excited to have Geonamic here with us to close out the year on our last PODSCast of the year. And super excited also that we're closing out the year. This will be my third year now as executive director of PODS. And you guys, it just keeps getting better and better every single year. We're going to have so much fun even in 2025. So with that, let's get to it. First and foremost, let's have a quick safety moment. Thanksgiving is coming up. At my house, of course, Brad's going to give me a hard time about using canned roux, but we do a lot of cooking around Thanksgiving and Christmas, especially down in South Louisiana. And so we want to make sure that you guys are practicing safe cooking this Thanksgiving. And so from our fellow practitioners of safety, for fire safety, we want to make sure to remember to, you ready? Stand by your pan. Don't leave it unattended. Okay, I'll stop. It's never a gift, right?
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, make sure you turn those handles in. All right. So yeah, with that, quick housekeeping. This is going to be the first time that we do a podcast on the Teams format. So we're going to do things a little bit differently here. We're going to make sure if you have a question, you want to type that into the questions box, or you want to raise your hand and we can unmute you and ask a question there. We have a lot of information to cover though. So if we don't get to all of your questions, we will definitely follow up with those after our subject matter experts with Geonamic will follow up with those after the podcast is over. So we're going to do a quick intro, and then the crew is going to talk about data readiness, data migration, tools and techniques, QA/QC, APR configurations, ILI modules, and then also the new integrity regulatory module and applications there. Then they're going to dive into the meat of it, which is some lessons learned of what they've seen here recently with migrating one of their clients from PODS 4 to PODS 7. So with that, the main goal here with all of these podcasts is to make sure that we remember that asset knowledge is essential to confident compliance, risk management, and serves as the baseline for all of our asset management systems. The most significant aspect here is that asset knowledge is critical to pipeline safety. So we're all here for pipeline safety. We want to remind everybody that to keep our eye on the ball and to keep innovating. And that's what we do here at PODS. We're a wonderful community of people who have been here for almost 27 years and over 200 pipeline operators. And thanks to Geonamic, now 39 countries all over the world. And over 3 million plus miles of pipeline assets and systems are in the PODS data model. So super excited about that. We've been around for a long time and we continuously innovate and move the ball forward. Of course, real quick, the benefits of the PODS data model is that it's an open platform compatible with the Esri software. All of our operator members are on the Esri platform. So we're doing a lot more with Esri nowadays to ensure compliance with and the good transition for that. And I know that the Esri partners like Geonamic are doing a lot to build their software to be compliant and to work very well with the Esri system, which it does. Of course, it's all linear reference based and it's pipe centric, right? It's standardized and modernized our data management for reporting. And of course, it's a great compliance and risk and decision making tool, especially with this new integrity regulatory module that we have. And again, we're going to remind you that all of this is paramount to safe pipeline operations. So with that, my name is Monique Roberts. I'm the Executive Director of PODS. I'm super excited to be here. And if we can, we want to give this great looking panel here a moment to introduce themselves and to say a little bit about themselves. And then we're going to learn a little bit more about you. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Brad Schaff extraordinaire.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Happy to be here. I'm Brad Schaff. I am a principal at Geonamic. Have been involved with building and implementing software for the oil and gas pipeline industry for more than 25 years now, and love it. Great market to be in, and really enjoy our work and our clients at Geonamic. At Geonamic, I'm in an account management role primarily, so work with our accounts to kind of oversee projects and help to make sure everything's resourced okay.
Yeah, I'm Jackie Smith. I work for Geonamic. I am a project manager, GIS consultant. I have been with Geonamic for just over almost 2 years now, and very happy to be here. I've been in, the data migration lead here for the last several months, and I'm really happy and ready to present today to you guys. I also will get in trouble if I don't mention that I am a PODS volunteer. So I am co-chair of the Training and Education and Events Committee. And so I help to bring training and events to you with Monique.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Jackie. And
Mm-hmm.
Chengming, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Chengming Du. I'm a technical lead at the Geonamic. I started to use PODS data model, back to year, I think, 2000. And since then, I have built applications and the software just based on PODS data model to support the pipeline asset management and risk integrity program. From PODS 4, relational, entity key and GUI ID, PODS spatial, and the latest PODS 7. I have seen the evolving and the growth of the PODS organization in the past 24 years, and seeing more and more operators join the PODS and adopt PODS data model, and I'm very happy to be part of PODS organization.
I love it. Chengming is going to share his trauma with us from having been a part of it for so long, and yet sound joyful about it at the same time. That's a good way to do that. And so Brad, I'm gonna send it back to you, because I know that you guys are not boastful and very humble group, but I want to thank you again to Geonamic for being year over year a great gold enterprise sponsor of PODS, and continuously supporting the critical work that PODS does, and ensuring that we can keep bringing great content like this to us. So thank you so much for all your continuous support of the PODS Association.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, so with that, the first thing we're going to do here, since we learned a little bit about our panel, is we are going to learn a little bit about you guys. So, and you guys are going to bear with me because this is the first time we use this interface. And for those of you that know me for more than 5 minutes, you know that I am not a technical person, that I am here because I'm adorable. So we are going to launch the first poll, and it should come up in your chat area on the side of the screen, or it might even pop up in the middle of your screen. Are people seeing the poll?
It's in the chat.
It is great. Okay, so
and we can also see what you're doing as well.
Oh,
yeah,
great. Okay.
We do see the application screen there, Monique.
Oh, okay. Well, let me minimize that. All right.
Just so you know.
Look, we're all learning here. Continuous improvement, right? So we want to know about you. Please pick the answer that closely relates to your job. Of course, those of us in the pipeline industry, we never have one job, right? Brad's going to tell you that he's an account manager, but he's also the principal of the organization. Jackie will tell you that she's a GIS administrator, but she's also has 17 other jobs, and so does Chengming, right? So, but if you can, please pick the one that's most closely resembles what you do. And then, can you guys see the results of the poll in the chat as well? You can.
Yep.
Okay. Well, y'all tell me what's it showing.
Yeah, so as expected, 73% GIS. We have a couple about even running neck and neck there, the IT and the integrity or safety analysts that have joined. So I'm really happy to see that we've got a good mix, but we as always, we always love our GIS people to come learn about this. Yeah.
And it's kind of indicative to our community too, Jackie, right? Like we have just a very wide array of different people that take part in our community, and we're lucky to have that, right? Because, just yesterday we were on a call about the SCADA module that we're developing, and we had a few people on there that specialize in gas control and SCADA, right? And so you would never think that SCADA people would hang out at a PODS community, but because we're very inclusive, we do a lot of stuff. It's pretty cool that we have a wide range, right? So with that, now that we've learned a little bit of our panel and a little bit more about you guys, I'm going to hand it to Brad, who's going to go for some more information about Geonamic. And can you see the screen again with the Geonamic slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
looks good. Thank you. I'll be brief on this. Just want to quickly introduce ourselves for those of you that don't know us. Been around since 2006, but principals, including Chungming and myself, a lot longer, focused on this industry. We are based in Atlanta. We have all of our developers here in-house in Atlanta, but also have quite a few staff in Houston, really managing projects, supporting clients, including Jackie there in Houston. We do continue to focus just on your industry, 100% on oil and gas pipeline, and we work worldwide, and very fortunate to work with many of the largest oil and gas pipeline companies in the world. We do focus a lot of our resources on developing technology, and for that reason, the PODS Association is really important to us. We're really happy to be a gold sponsor. We get so much value out of the association, particularly with how things have evolved now, and are better aligned with the Esri platform that we build upon. Really reduces cost and time for us for both us and our clients to build software on top of these standard models. We work a lot really in two areas. One, to stay aligned with models. So we adopted POD 7 pretty early. And most of our clients are operating on some version of PODS, and many of them are starting to move to 7. We've been fortunate to have quite a few data migration projects to 7 the second half of this year. So just wrapping up several of those now, and hope to be able to share some good lessons learned with you. We also work very hard to stay aligned and current with Esri. So our platform is completely compatible with ArcGIS Pro. We're completely away from ArcMap, and we're compatible and coexist beautifully with APR as well. And of course, those reasons are one of the reasons that a lot of operators are moving or considering to move as well. Go ahead, Monique.
Awesome.
So just from a software perspective, we build modular software. We use the entire Esri platform. So we do deploy some things as extensions to ArcGIS Pro or add-ins to ArcGIS Pro. We also like to use the embedded Esri technology to get performance, particularly for some of the complex integrity applications like ILI management and run comparison, risk modeling, MAOP analysis, and so on. Again, all of these work beautifully with PODS 7. And if you move to PODS 7, and if you're using the APR tools, we work, very well with that as well. You just wouldn't need our editing platform in that case. But everything else is compatible and works quite well. Go ahead. And then finally, services. We love to do services where we can leverage our software. So we do quite a bit of that. It's probably about half of our business. And we're particularly good at kind of taking that software and using it to deliver results. For data migration, we're going to talk about this a little bit. We do use our software to really make that as efficient as possible. We've invested quite a bit of development hours to kind of build automated migration capabilities and QC capabilities, data readiness assessment, and Jackie will talk a little bit more about that. So that's it for my intro. Let's get into the meat of lessons learned.
Right. Thanks, Brad. So when an operator wants to migrate, they want to know, what does that mean and how long is it going to take, right? Other than how much is it going to cost. What I can do is provide you a suggested roadmap. And so this is what we've been doing for many of our data migrations. We've been kind of breaking it out into key phases. And these phases can happen iteratively. Some of them can happen in parallel. But these are the key ones. Planning is very important, finalizing that project plan, deciding whether you want to go to PODS APR, deciding if you want to add the utility network to that POD 7 implementation is also one of your main decisions, and which modules you want to add. And then the data discovery happens. We're going to do the data readiness checks, for example, which I'll share with you in a very brief moment. The data mapping can't be underrated. That's very important. That's basically where you do a crosswalk or a data mapping. You can call it two different things, of your PODS 4 to your PODS 7 tables. And you do a lot of code list to domain mapping, and you extend PODS 7 as you need. Loading, you develop that, execute. Sometimes there's several iterations you need to go through to get it right. QC and acceptance testing, big part of that, which we'll talk about. The data management workflows, of course, you're going to be doing everything differently now. You'll be using, whatever software you've chosen, Esri APR, utility network, for example. And then training, big part of that is training, right? So that comes toward the end. So again, this can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. 6 months has been we've been doing it in an under 6 month time frame. So we're pretty excited about that. We've really automated a lot of the process. So thank you. Next slide.
Jackie, you helped me, and the reason why I'm going to ask this question is because you helped me with a document, which, you helped me with a lot of stuff, but you helped me with a document kind of outlining the differences between PODS 6 and PODS 7. So I know you guys are talking today about moving from PODS 4 to PODS 7, but you guys
Right.
you guys move your clients from 5 and 6 to 7 as well, right? We're just focusing on
Yes.
4 to 7 today, correct?
Right.
Okay.
All this applies to really any of the previous pods instances, but some of the specific examples today are from PODS 4.
Gotcha. Okay, good. All right. So with that, since you talked about, how important it is for, what you're going to get into and your software around, data quality and looking at that, we kind of wanted to get a litmus test or a little information back from who's on board today. If you are moving to POD 7 or if you're even thinking about moving to POD 7, how about that, right? Which you should all be thinking about moving to POD 7. Is how would you rate your quality of data, right? So you would choose 1 if it's over 90% good data, and 2 if it's 75 to 90, 3 50 to 75, and then 4 would be under 50. And Jackie, really, this is a WAG, right? I mean, people,
Yeah.
until you get
Nobody
into
knows.
it, until you get into it, like you're
Estimate.
really not going to know what's really. I mean, you can get
I'm
a
curious what
sample.
I'm curious what people think, and then, compare that to what it actually is later.
Right. Exactly. So you guys see the poll up in the
Yeah.
chat. So go
All
ahead
right.
and give those answers there. But yeah, I mean, back in my previous life, and I'm sure you guys see it too, is, they would get into a project and they'd realize, oh, wait a second, we forgot about, this storage facility where we have, 60, legal boxes of paper pressure records that, we forgot that we even needed to scan, right? Or whatever, right? People just, you don't really know what you have until you get into it. So you really want to partner with somebody that's going to help you, figure out a plan path forward before you get started, right?
Yeah.
So,
So this is is what I expected. The majority of your data you feel like is good. There are some outstanding overachievers there that are, their data, most of their data is good. And that's fine. That's a lot of the software out there will help you maintain good data in PODS 4. So that's not too surprising. So
but
yeah.
that's not going to hinder them, right, Jackie,
No.
from moving to 7 if they have, like, say
No.
the people that answered number 4, that's not going to
Right.
stop them, right?
No, it shouldn't stop. No, because we can still do validation checks to get you ready for the POD 7 migration to use, basically it's to get you ready to use Esri APR or to be able to manage your data. A lot of people want to take advantage of the upgrade and the data migration to clean up some of their data. So that's perfectly legit. We can do that. Some of our software we've written in data validation checks. And they're basically in 3 categories, very similar to Esri Data Reviewer. We have attribute checks, linear referencing checks, and geometry checks. Some of the examples that we've had with the PODS 4 to PODS 7 migration, there may be some missing values in domains, but that does not hinder or make you not be able to migrate. It's just information. Linear referencing. There's a lot of about route, series, events, linear events. So, for example, a route may not belong to a series, or a series may not have a parent route, and we do those kind of checks. For events, there may be a check that the measure of a valve is out of the range, or a more linear event, the start and the end is outside the range, or it's an orphaned event. Say it's a valve that was added at some point, something was retired and it's still out there and it doesn't have a parent series or route. Those kind of checks are what we would do. And then there's also gap and overlap checks. So, for example, like a DOT class doesn't extend to the end of the line. Geometry, the standard geometry checks are there, empty geometry, multi-part, geometry not found. Maybe there's duplicate control points or duplicate points on the route with duplicate measure, with the same measure. That's not allowed in APR. So those are checks you can do. And then series, maybe they're not precisely connected with the next series. The lat long may not be exactly the same. So just things that we would point out to be able to say whether or not you wanted to update that data and clean it up. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Next slide. So I want to go into the data migration methodology that we use. Really, we divide it into into focus areas. And these are on your screen in front of you. We do the center line and the pipeline hierarchy first. That's kind of the core, the part that really is needed to be done first, that will translate to a successful migration. So we spend a lot of time on that, making sure that's mapped, making sure your routes and your well, used to be called routes, now it's a continuous measure, your engineering line work, they're all migrated correctly or mapped correctly. And then we focus on the events, and that's point and linear events. And maybe there's some cases where we need to extend PODS 7 to include what's in PODS 4 as well. And so that's where we talk about that. For example, cathodic protection, maybe there's an anode feature class that you want, but maybe that's not in PODS 7 yet, but we can extend PODS 7 using some of the information we know to include that. Then we move on to sites and offline, and then we move on to domains. And now domains can be a contentious subject because the domains in PODS 7 are there, and you have domains that you created in PODS 4, or rather code lists. In PODS 4, they're called code lists. So you have these values, say the type of valve, you have the type of valve. And you maintain those types, and you don't want to use the PODS 7 types. You don't have to. So our methodology is to migrate those domains over, and then if you'd like to clean them up later, you can. That's just kind of the best practice that we found that really speeds up the migration. And then there's non-PODS, so all of those tables and feature classes that really aren't, have traditionally not been in PODS at all. I can't think of an example right now. Maybe there's some kind of aerial imagery metadata that you have, or maybe there's something like that. So we also categorize that and migrate that as a service. And then history, a lot of, do you want to migrate all that history over? Well, that's, up to you, but we really like to focus on migrating, just current information, and then maybe the history is included in those dates. So if you have an effective from date, we would migrate that, of course, over to the from date in PODS 7. So that helps to maintain some history.
Jackie, on the sites are offline, you use the CP as an example from PODS 4 to PODS 7. Yeah. So, when the CP module is out and ready, right? How hard would it be to add that module in so that you have even more, right? CP data attributes than what was in PODS 4, right?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I think that the way that we're modularizing PODS now will make it kind of a plug-and-play type situation. There will be some work if you've already created the cathodic protection table, so it's kind of a decision whether you want to go with the new one or not at that point. But if you haven't used those tables, it really is becoming more of a a plug and play, thanks to our TCDM committee, our technical committee on data modeling.
So when you say plug and play, you don't mean like a 3-month workload. You mean like couple of days just to plug it in.
I mean, yeah, like literally importing an XML into a file geodatabase and then transferring that over to your enterprise geodatabase, and then
I mean, almost as if I
tying
could do
it tying it to APR almost. Yeah. So,
All right, cool.
yeah, so a little bit more on the methodology. We talked about techniques and tools. So some of the techniques I spoke about, you have to do that crosswalk or that mapping. So that's your table to your column, your table to table mapping, and then your column mapping within those tables. And I'll speak a little bit about that in another slide, but that's really the most important part. And spending time on that helps to make a successful initial data migration. If you don't spend time on that and then you get your data migrated, you're like, wait, what is this doing here? I don't think that this belongs. Well, then you have to go back and look at your table mapping and change it, and then it just takes more time. So if you spend the time up front on that mapping, that's a really big lessons learned from us. The code lists. And in PODS 4, another technique, those code lists are just created as domains. And in PODS 7, anything that's empty, we would recommend not to migrate. If you're not using it now, why use it in PODS 7? For example, another example is unknowns. Maybe all the unknowns are used. It's all say your valve function is populated, but it's all unknowns. Well, why, maybe you don't want to keep that. So that's just another example of cleaning up your data. And then the tools primarily that we are using, we have some loader programs that we've created that help to automate a lot of the PODS 4 to PODS 7 translations. And it's also included in that is some SQL. There's a lot of SQL that's embedded that helps to automate the creation of the mapping files. So those are created using the SQL, and then those can be implemented and updated by the operator and the team. And then FME can also be used to do some of those migrations as well. So yep. A little bit more on the migration itself. The data mapping itself. So for PODS 4, everything is in the station center line. This core is called the station center line, if y'all remember correctly. And the line hierarchy, all of that information now translates to pipeline. So it's reduced complexity, reducing those two tables into one. The route in the series, the route is going to be translated into your continuous measure network, and the series is translated into the engineering station network. And so if you'll notice all those feature classes on the right, that's that APR core location reference, location model that you've seen when you see Jeff Allen present. He's always presenting that core model. This is basically the core model on the right. Centerline geometry and calibration point, those come from the centerlines geometry. In PODS 4, there's no control point feature class, no calibration point feature class. So those points have to be generated from the centerline itself. So that happens with the data migration. Next slide. More on the pipeline hierarchy mapping. In PODS 4, the product and the status are in ranges. So it's a beginning and an end linear event. And in PODS 7, that's not the case. They decided to take product and pipeline product are in tables now associated to the pipeline. So they're tabular, they're tables. They're not actually linear events. You can create linear events, but they're there as tables. And then the status range has become basically the operational status in the pipeline table. So there's no need to store a range. They felt like it could just be an attribute of the pipeline, whether it's in service or abandoned, for example. So lastly, another mapping example. It's been highly simplified from PODS 4, PODS Spatial, PODS 7. They all simplify this with the geometry being stored within the feature class. There's no need to store that coordinate information, the station point, the event range. If it's a linear event, for example, there's no need to store that all over the place. It can just be in one feature class. So So if you have a valve, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4-ish tables, now you just have one. So that really improves performance. Another good reason to go to Pod 7.
Yeah, also prevents that, that need in pods 4 to spatialize the database and create kind of a redundant version of it, so really makes things simpler from a sustainability perspective and a software perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, and so with that, we are I'm going to take an opportunity real quick to remind everybody. I know we've been talking a lot about pods 4 and pod 7, and we've mentioned Esri quite a bit, and the Geonamic and Brad mentioned earlier in the presentation that their software works with all of the pods models, as well as the renditions of Esri with APR and utility network. We have now at pods, we have 2 core models that we offer now on our new member portal, one of which is pod 7 APR, and the other which is pod 7 utility network. And so all these modules are going to be available on both of those, as well as in the future, with the help of our principal partner Esri, is going to be available on UPDM as well. So that's exciting stuff. So with that, knowing that you have so many different variables now and so many things to choose from, this is why I don't eat at the Cheesecake Factory, because the menu is 87 pages long and I cannot decide. We would love for you to decide. So, because we're supporting everything at this point, we would love to know what your choices are, what your team's choices are in moving to the idea of moving to pod 7 APR or utility network. And so are you looking at APR only? Are you looking at both APR and utility network, or are you not sure? And, Brad and Jackie, I know you guys have seen this quite a bit because we've talked about it. And again, from my past life, I know it as well. Like, every operator is different, right? So just like with the pods model, people are only probably going to adopt maybe up to 80% at most of the pods data model, right? And so just because it needs to be operator specific, right? It means you guys work on a customer centric operation.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the different variables, maybe Brad, because you talk with your customers quite a bit. What are the different variables that they're looking at when trying to make a decision about where to move to?
Yeah, utility network. We have a couple clients that have moved to that, and the reason they have is functionality driven. They like some of the kind of tracing functionality and some of the things that will enable, and they're willing to kind of do the extra work to get there, both from a data and configuration perspective. I think the other consideration, certainly if it's a vertically integrated company, like some of our clients, then they're very interested in that in order to have kind of one database for both the distribution and transmission assets and gathering systems. And then finally, many of our clients are looking at starting to map facility piping. So, Jeff Allen gives a lot of great demos, and that's gotten a lot of our clients excited about that prospect. And many are putting that into their future plans as well.
Yeah. And are you finding that you're helping your customers get their projects approved as well? Because I do a lot of that, right? With the operators now, especially being the executive director of pods, operators reach out to me all the time asking me for help in selling their leadership on these projects, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we do get that opportunity sometimes, we like to do that and try to draw from experience with different clients and even connect clients when we can, through pods or directly. We try to do quite a bit of that as well.
Yeah. Thank you. You win the award for getting the second place for the most new members of PODS this year, behind me, of course.
Oh, okay, good.
Of course.
So what are we at on the poll? Because I can't see it.
Yeah, it's basically half and half. APR and UNET are tied. So
Yeah.
Really?
yeah. And then
Wow.
not sure is 3 people, three
Yeah.
responses. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people can't use the poll for some reason,
Yeah,
so
it
we'll
looks
have
like
to
there's a
research
little
that.
configuration issue. I think, I can't actually use the poll on my side, Monique. It's blocking it. So it could be a configuration on the individual teams, but something to look at for sure, because we're just getting kind of the same number of responses every time, about 15 to 17. So
Yeah. Okay.
looks like a lot of people are blocked.
we're going to send a survey afterwards, and we'll ask these questions, and then we'll also ask for some feedback on the why, right? Why are you looking at APR only, or why are you looking at UNet with APR and whatnot? Because we'd love to hear more, right? Because the more we can learn as a community, the more we can develop, right? To make sure that we're supporting all of our members. So thank you for responding on that. And yeah, so I think
Great.
back to Jackie now.
Yeah, yeah.
great.
So following on the APR configuration, a lot of times when you do a data migration, it's just taking data from one format to the other. But we like to go beyond that and also help to configure the APR, the Esri Location Referencing Network, so that the data migration actually works. So you can actually, enable your routes, generate your routes. Maybe do some derived events right out of the box after you've had your data migrated. And so these are some of the steps that we take to do that. So it's just kind of a screenshot of that. You can do this with Model Builder or script it out in Python and attach it to the data migration. Basically creating the LRS from those core feature classes, centerline sequence, calibration point, red line, and then creating your LRS line network, which is your engineering station network, and then you create your LRS derived network, which is your continuous measure network. So those are the three main categories to do for your APR configuration. So just wanted to educate people on that. Some of the QC procedures that we take on, and of course this is very important. You want to make sure that you've got 100% of your data migrated. You don't want to miss anything. Even if it's not important, it's not up to us to decide that. We want to include everything that you've provided us to migrate over. Some ways that we do that is to do record counts before and after. And then another way is to run DOT mileage to make sure your mileage is actually the same. Because if it's not, you want to investigate that a little bit, see why. You want to do counts on the series or the engineering line network versus the routes and the continuous measure network. When you do those counts, you want to consider tables that you merge. So in PODS 4, external and internal coding are separated, and in PODS 7, they are one coding feature class. So, if you want to keep those together, you want to make sure and consider those counts. Same with road and rail. There's just some examples. Road and rail go into one feature class called crossing transportation. You want to consider counts and when you split data out. In PODS 4, there's a foreign line crossing table that we all remember, hopefully. When you go to PODS 7, there's a pipeline and a utility transportation or crossing feature class. So there's two separate feature classes that store that. So it's really diving into those those asset or code lists to bring those over into the other feature classes in PODS 7. So consider that when you're counting and doing the QC. And then visual inspection and spot checking is always can be also used. And then you can run those same data readiness checks that we ran earlier. You can run those post-migration. So the route, the series, you can make sure that the linear referencing is valid after as well. Make sure there's nothing messed up when you did something in that data migration that caused it to have a different error this time. Same with point and linear events, running those validations that check for gaps and overlaps where you're not expecting to see them. So we can do that after as well. So, great. So a little bit about the modules. I wanted to speak to this because this is the future of PODS, right? We want to have that core PODS 7 model and then these modules that we plug in. So we right now we're just going to talk about the inline inspection, a little bit about the integrity regulatory, but the inline inspection module is one that we used for the client, and that will allow us to store ILI data from any vendor, millions of data points, into the PODS schema. So let's switch slides on that. So a little bit about the ILI module. It's pretty simple. It's a ILI data table and an ILI inspection rate linear event, and that ties to the inspection range. So in PODS 4, there's a ILI inspection range, and so in PODS 7 we can just use the inspection range. in that case. And then again, you can also extend this. For example, with the Geonamic solution, we've extended the POD 7 ILI module to for ILI inspection to be a table that stores metadata, and then we use the inspection range as the actual linear event of that inspection. So just another way to do that, and POD 7 is flexible enough that you can make those changes. So
why did y'all
yeah.
do that, Jackie? Why did y'all decide to extend that? Was that specifically for your software, or yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
we do some things with anomaly matching and growth calculations that maybe aren't fully supported, kind of out of the box. And yes, the ILI module has definitely been stress tested. It's a very widely used, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in another slide. But yeah, it's really application specifics and some kind of placeholders to store kind of calculation results and relationships between anomalies across multiple vendors and tools and vintages of data.
Cool. So good to know that it's feasible to do so.
Sure. All right, so this is just a little bit more information about the integrity application. So the important part here is you really supports the Geonamic application is supporting ILI pipe tally from any vendor from any year. And we've had we've up to, I believe, 800,000 records in Excel that we've been able to load into this tool, and this performance is very well, in the ILI PODS module is supporting that underneath. So this tool supports feature-to-feature weld matching, as well as the ILI to the GIS POD 7 features alignment. So it supports all of that. And there's auto alignment capability, alignment to IMU, just the XYZs. And they all have all the capability that you have in our other software applications within the integrity application module.
Yeah. I want to mention a couple things about this. You know, there was a question about stress testing. So we do have some fairly large operators that have gone back and loaded all of their historical data. And in some cases, that's 2,000, 3,000 pipe tallies that are managed. In the past, there was a thinking that needed to go in a separate database, the inspection data, as opposed to the asset data. But it is that's an option still if you really want to do that for any reason. We have clients that do that, but we have got the performance that we like pushing this directly into POD 7. Really great performance, particularly when you kind of optimize the kind of client tool. That's a very viable option now, whereas before, you know, kind of maintaining that separate inspection database was something that a lot of operators did.
So Brad, let me ask you, because I've gotten this question from operators, and I've also gotten feedback from operators, and on a positive note, many that have not tested or looked at the ILI module were concerned about how it would slow things down, right? Because you have so much data. But other operators have come to me and said, and I'm going to mess it up, but because it's connected, but it's not a part of the whole system, that it's because it's separate, it doesn't slow any. Can you explain that better than me?
Yeah, not a concern. You know, what I think you have to think about is when you're doing maybe some complex pipeline operations like a centerline refinement or a pipe replacement or a reroute type thing. You know, the advantage of having this all in one database then is that ILI data is managed and properly kind of retired if it needs to be retired. You know, if it's a refinement, then you can go through a workflow to update that kind of alignment. So that's, I think, where you might see a little bit of performance issue is just, you know, if you were doing, you know, they're rare, but if you were doing one of those complex reroute operations or replacements or something like that and had ILI as a managed event data set. But it's worth it. I mean, having it there and accessible and eliminating that need to kind of sync up, you know, that external database that can be done, but it's just extra workflows and extra complexities. There's also a question about maintaining. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask Brad. So the way it was explained to me is that it's kind of a dotted line to ILI, so it doesn't slow down your main operations. Just when you're using the ILI, you might see a little bit of a slowdown just because you're munging so much data. Is that correct? Okay.
I think that's correct. And again, there's a lot of things you can do kind of on the application side to optimize that. What we do
Okay.
is we use the Esri kind of embeddable technology to kind of get a level of performance that would be maybe difficult to get if we try to do it completely within a full pro desktop, for example.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
So there was a question about supporting the concept of a master weld tally with PODS 7. Absolutely. We love that idea of establishing a reference and taking your kind of best, most recent ILI run and using that to build that. And I see some other people are chiming in, particularly, people that are involved with risk modeling and ILI analysis. So that's a great practice and, fully supported by the data model. Just need kind of a workflow and some procedures. But it does simplify that weld to weld matching kind of moving forward. And of course that facilitates getting an accurate anomaly matching process.
Yeah. Total sidebar. I know you guys do a lot of work with, what is it? Pipeline risk and, what's his name? Dave,
Mike Lovin.
Mike Lovin. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you guys I think y'all are doing something up. We'll plug that later on. I know we got to get rocking and rolling. We ready for the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, last slide of mine. Lessons learned. So, these are not an extensive list of lessons learned, but there were some of the key ones that I wanted to point out. I think that seeing the data migrated is the best test of your mapping files. There's really no way to test the mapping files other than using them and doing the data migration. And so we like to have several tests of that data migration. There's no reason you have to just have one big one at the end. You can have or just two, for example. You can have several the way we've automated the data migration scripting. The test APR workflows, you really need to test those out for the line network. Once you get the data migrated, see if you can create a route, see if you can extend a route, for example. See if you can generate calibration points, make sure that's all tied up to, that APR is working, correctly. Test generate routes on the entire network, not just on one line. So one of our projects, we generated routes and we got an Esri error, and we were not sure what we were doing. And come to find out it was just a version issue. It was something that had been fixed, and so it went away. But those things are important to do when you're doing these data migrations. You also, with APR, you have to use branch versioning. So testing that branch versioning by setting up feature edit service is really important. And then edit events. So set up your event editing service so that you can do that, test that. All those things that are really important to make sure that you've got a functioning database, data migration. And then we had a couple of issues with the from date. So when we would migrate the from date of an event on the route, say for example you had a valve that was older or newer than the pipeline, it would do some kind of splicing where it would create two valve records, one for the older one and one for the newer one, and it just wasn't what we wanted to see. So we just decided to migrate the from date of the route for all the events. So any kind of valve or elbow or pipe segment that was tied to that route, they would all get the same from date as the route. So that just made sense for us. Some of the things to highlight for PODS 7 and APR quote unquote standards that we decided to I guess extend for PODS 7. So the operational status is at the pipeline level in PODS 7, and that caused an issue because they wanted to maintain the status at the route level. So that's fine. You just add a field to the continuous measure network called operational status, and you can maintain it there as well. The source field, we had to add that to all of our feature classes, and that's something that we will work on at PODS 7 in our next release to make sure that source field's there. Another thing, any of the PODS 4 fields that have been used that we missed in PODS 7, we just carry those over as is and maybe add some PODS 7 standardization to them. The measure with pod 7 is stored in the calibration point. So the measure is no longer, and the station is no longer stored in each feature class. So that's something to get used to. So there's different ways that you have to, view your data if you want to see that all the station and the measure with each event in your pod 7 database. And then the last thing to remember is customization is always going to happen. There's never going to be a one single pod 7 implementation that's identical, just like the out of the box. So, that's just something that we've learned, and that's perfectly okay. That every operator does things a little bit different. So.
And we're all special, Jackie.
Yeah.
Every single one of us, super special.
For sure. Yeah.
So I want to hang out on this one for a second, because Brad said that there was some chatter in the chat box, and I know that this is a big deal on what you guys learned from this, and thank you very much for sharing this with our community, because from what I've heard, this is 7 has been the first reason really to move since 4, right? And so this is a big deal that you guys are sharing all this stuff from us. So are you guys getting any more questions or comments in the chat box?
I think it's caught up now. Just the question about the master weld tally.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So we're good to go?
yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I'm gonna take it away from the Geonamic team for a second, and just talk a little bit more about pods and what we have coming up. This new module thing that we're talking about quite a bit, that Esri has been partnering with us on, is really going to be, we think, very cool. We're really wanting to open up the PODS data model to more pipeliners, right? We this summer introduced our first ever non-oil and gas model. We introduced a water pipeline model this past summer for the first time ever, which is just, I think, super cool. We have brand new members that are in hydrogen and carbon sequestration. And so, the energy future is changing. The need for data transparency is changing. PODS started the year before Bellingham, Washington. So I think it's very cool that that our industry, that our fellowship, our community got together even before these incidents happened, and realized that we needed to have a standard. I'm actually here today at an ASME standards event for the digital transformation. So right after this PODSCast, I'm going to go give a presentation on data standards for pipelines. So, it's very important, right, what we're doing here, and all eyes are on us. So, especially with the public's focus is on pipelines and the rising cost of failure. So, we really want to open up the data model for more pipeliners, and so we're working very diligently with Esri and also with PHMSA, right? So Leah Gooding and I from PHMSA will be speaking together at PPIM in January on the new MPMS updates. So make sure that you catch that. But the PODS data model is the baseline for MPMS. So the best way to ensure that you have your data ready for your annual reports and your MPMS uploads is to have it in PODS. So with that, our vision is to align more with more operators like LDCs, and like Brad talked about, where companies that they work with that have many different types of assets, so distribution, gathering, whatnot. And so we're hoping to offer these modules onto UPDM in the future as well. And Esri is very much supportive of that, and is going to donate a lot of time and energy and effort to help us produce those. So we're super grateful for that. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit more. We actually have our 2020. We have our stuff together now, guys. Look, I'm going into year 4 of the job. I finally figured it out. Finally have it together a little bit. So we got a plan for 2025. So Geonamic is going to be at the majority of these events, as well a lot of our sponsors. And hopefully you will be too. So we have a new member portal that we've recently put out, and so we're going to do a new member orientation and refresher for all of our previous members as well, because we have a new portal on January 14th, and then we're going to be at PPIM. We're doing our second ever international standalone PODS forum. That's going to be in Dubai in February, so that's cool. It won't be adjacent to any other event. We've had a huge surge in international inquiry into pods. We're now, thankfully to Geonamic, up to 39 countries now from 38 this past year. And so we're doing a lot more stuff internationally. So we're going to be in Dubai in February with Petra IT and several others. We're going to be talking to, we may, of course, doing the spring forum. Make sure you mark your calendars for this spring, because URGIS is going to be the Tuesday through the Thursday. Our pod spring forum is going to be the Monday, the 28th. So make sure you mark your calendars for that. Come check us out at PTC. Geonamic is going to be there too, as well at PTC in Berlin. We're going to be doing the Global Women in Pipeline as well. You guys asked for more operator-only user group meetings, so we're going to have that as a part of our spring and fall forums moving forward as a standard. And then we're also going to try to do some operator-only user group meetings throughout the year, so that you can hear more from your peers about migrations to 7 and what all you guys have going on. So we got a lot of stuff coming up. You know, Jackie was just in London a couple of weeks ago doing a presentation on PODS and UPDM at the Esri URGIS EU, and so we're busy. We got a lot of stuff going on. So make sure you stay tuned for so much more coming in 2025 for PODS. And none of this would be available and to our community if you don't pay your dues. So everybody has their dues invoices in house. So make sure that you guys pay those dues early and often, and we'll keep this thing running. So with that, I want to hand it back to the Geonamic team for any final comments and talk about some things that you guys are working on and things you have planned. But thank you again so much to everybody that participated in this, and we hope to see you quite often in 2025. So back to you guys for any final thoughts.
There were two good questions, actually. I see Chuming just responded one. One coming from Canada is PODS looking at introducing modules or tables for non-US regulations? That's something we hear a bit as well with our work outside of the US.
We are. So the Canada Energy Regulator just recently joined PODS. So same as PHMSA, we're going to be working with them hand in hand to learn more. So what we do with PHMSA is when they have a notice of proposed rulemaking that they put out, we figure out what data attributes are going to be associated with that new rule. We meet with them, we gather those, and then we build out the model specifically to those. So the integrity regulatory module that we have recently put out onto the PODS member portal is based on 192, 195 for the federal U.S. federal code, as well as Texas Railroad Commission. But however, because CER just joined and they've been previous members years ago, they rejoined, let me be clear, we are going to work with them to get those regulations from Canada as well. We work the same with Brazil and those regulations as well. So I have actually a meeting with CDUT later on this afternoon. We work with PRCI on the SCADA link. So yes, the answer is yes, we work with everybody. I do not discriminate.
And then there was another really good question related to Esri ArcGIS Enterprise feature services and how that works with pipe tallies or ILI data that might be published into PODS, presumably. Chuming responded to that, but we actually did some custom kind of service and widget development to try to streamline this. Built some widgets that can be deployed with Portal or ArcGIS Online kind of maps to try to optimize that performance. I don't know that we have too much experience just using those feature services out of the box, Chungming. That might be a good question, to pose to maybe Jeff Allen or Fernando at Esri as well. Anything you want to add to that, Chungming? Thanks for responding. You are muted, by the way. There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's it. I think for huge volume of data like a pipe tally or II data, I mean, the routing through the feature services has performance issue. That's the known issue. So
yeah,
I think as we may,
so we do kind of a direct database connection and then did some custom development, at least within our applications. But that would be a good one to talk to Esri about and see what kind of tuning might be possible.
Awesome. So with that, that's a great point. So you guys have all of your contact information up here. Please send out any additional questions. And Also, we're going to send out a survey so that you can give us some good feedback, all in the intent of continuous improvement and continuous engagement. And so, again, thank you so very much to Geonamic for hanging out with us today on this podcast. And thank you so much to all of you for participating. We're going to be uploading this up to our PODS channel on YouTube as well, so you can check it out there or forward it on to your colleagues that missed a really cool program today. So any other things, Jackie? Anybody else?
No, thank you. Please reach out if you have any questions at all. We're happy to help.
All right,
you.
great. And
Really
we'll follow up.
appreciate the attendance and the time. Thanks, Monique.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Jackie.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
other SEOs can learn from this effort of what Fit 33 has done. And then I'll move into something more recently from what we've done